good evening to you and welcome for the final time this series to TalkSport 2 and the TalkSport Cricket YouTube channel's coverage of the West Indies against England T20 series. England had the 5-match series wrapped up after the first 3 games, but the West Indies hit back last night with a sensational chase on a record-breaking night to breathe life back into an entire region. So it's all over tonight, whatever the outcome, but will England be getting back on the plane with a 4-1 series win, or will the home side be able to put back-to-back wins together and go down by just a single match? We will find out over the next few hours here on TalkSport 2. Welcome along, everybody. A very busy sporting weekend. You've filled your boots, I hope, over the course of it, and here we go, we continue, and as you've just been hearing with the NFL boys, they will take you through the night as well, so we are far from done as we bring you the 5th T20 International this evening here on TalkSport 2. St Lucia, the Darren Sammy ground for the final time of this particular series. Series is won, England 3-1 up with 1 to play, but who's going to come out on top with the second? Let's join Nikhil Chandani for the toss.
And the final time in this series, West Indies taking on England. We've got Robin Powell, home captain, Jos Buttler, match referee Sir Richie Richardson is here to oversee proceedings. Robin has got the coin. And it's a heads. Robin has lost another toss. Jos, you've won the toss. What will you be doing today?
We're going to bowl again. I think it was a really good wicket the other night. Expected to play the same.
Tell us about your team today. What have you done with it?
We've got 2 changes. Jofra Archer and Adil Rashid come in for Dan Mousley and Saqib Mahmood. How
do you see today's game, given that you've won the series? What are you trying to get out of it as a team?
Yeah, much more the same. You know, up against a great opposition. We had a fantastic game yesterday, high scoring, very exciting match, and I think we learned a lot from that game. And then we'll try and take that into today.
What about your bowling performance last night would you like to see improved today?
Not much, to be honest. I thought we did a pretty good job. Obviously, a couple of really big overs, which you want to try and limit in T20 cricket, but chasing a big score, the West Indies are always going to play that way. So we fought our way back into the game really well. But yeah, setting the tone with the ball today, so we'll try and do a good job with that.
All right, go well.
Thank you.
Jos Buttler will now get Robin Powell. Robin, losing the toss and having to bat first again today, what approach will we see from your top order?
I think it's a case of we still following the same template as we did yesterday. You know, yesterday was very good for us, and today provides another opportunity for us to do that.
The fact that every team has won in both series chasing, how do you sort of counter that historic stat, but also what do you need to do as a batting group to try to win posting a score?
I think it's just a case, if you got to bat first, you got to bat really good. You know, it's an opportunity for us to do that, as I say. You know, and I think the guys are upbeat. You know, it's a chance for us to set what we had done wrong in the earlier games right.
Tell me about your team today.
Yeah, we have 1 change. Obed McCoy misses out. In comes Romario Shepherd.
So you're going with the 5 bowlers again. Tell us what the thinking is behind that experimentation in this series. Second time you've done it.
To be honest, it's been 5 games, 5 long games. You know, the body is wear and tear. You know, every game we have guys pulling up with different sort of needles, you know, so that is something that we have to keep on monitoring. And you know, when guys keep on coming up with needles, that do change the combinations.
For the West Indian fans, what is the importance of finishing the series 3-2 today?
Yeah, it's very, very important. You know, it's a Sunday. You know, people in the Caribbean normally home, sitting down, hoping that West Indies would play good. You know, today is a day that we're looking to do that, you know, put smiles on the people of the Caribbean faces.
Right, a lot to play for. Thanks very much for your time. Robin Powell, captain of the West Indies. The news from the middle, another toss has been won and another captain elects to bowl. It's England who are bowling first.
Thank you very much, Nikhil. Yes, England win the toss for the 4th time this series, and it has been win the toss, win the game. Although I say that half jokingly, because after last night's sensational game, that doesn't quite tell the story of the whole thing. But it has been a case that the teams winning the toss have gone on to win the games. 2 changes for England. Jofra Archer and Adil Rashid in for Dan Mousley and Saqib Mahmood. It means that we don't get an outing for Pepper at all on this. We were told that the plan was to give everyone a bit of an outing, but that is not the case, so he will go home having not played Michael Pepper. So Jofra Archer and Adil Rashid go back in as England, by the look of it, go with their strongest lineup. Delighted to say that the former England spinner and Surrey head coach Gareth Batty is back in the commentary box with us this evening. Good evening, Mr. Batty. How are we?
Good evening, Macca. Good evening, everybody. Very well, thank you. And excited to see what this evening brings after the fireworks of last night. It's another mouth-watering contest.
Fascinating that England rang the changes yesterday, having said, look, we've won the series, we're 3-0 up, there's only 2 to play, we can have a little bit of an experiment. Yet here we are, 24 hours later, and they bring, look, 2 absolute gun players back in, which they didn't need to do. They could have said, right, well, we're going to carry on with the experimentation. As a head coach, what do you read into that?
2 things, really. Archer coming back in, they need to keep getting cricket into him to get him more robust and to get his body on the mend and getting game time in him is crucial, particularly with the cricket coming up and the huge competitions coming up. So I think him coming back in is 2 for 1 for that, but also for a Turner and Overton, sort of having that senior leading bowler out there with them is a good thing. And I think it's a little bit of the same for Adil coming in. There's some young spinners within the group, and it's good that your main man, proven, been there, done it, is out there for some on-field, on-time advice. Stroke might just be a wink, it might not be anything, but it's just nice to know that somebody out there is knowledgeable about what you're trying to do as a youngster. So it's good from a group point of view.
Saqib therefore misses out this evening, but finishes the series with 9 wickets at 10.6, which is incredible in anyone's book. In T20, well, actually in any form of cricket, let alone T20, he's been absolutely sensational. So I guess there's a part of, well, would you want to bowl him again, or do you actually say, mate, you've earned a rest, enjoy this, put your feet up?
Yeah, I would imagine that it's something to do with GPS and telling the sort of medical team and management where his body's at physically. He's obviously put in some wonderful performances, and arguably last night was his best performance, only going at 6s on a surface where everybody else is going out the ground. It's not just about the wickets, it's the consistency of being able to hold the game and sort of strangle, which England weren't able to take the wickets at the other end, but on a different day that would happen. So I think he's another one. He's like Archer, need game time. It's been a couple of years where he's not played a lot. So you're trying to get that sort of robustness back into a body, and as I say, it's with a couple of months down the line sort of on England's radar, I would assume.
While we're talking about workloads and all that kind of stuff and injuries and whatever, let's talk about Craig Overton. Before we do, though, let's hear from the man himself. Didn't bowl yesterday because of managing workload. He spoke earlier on this afternoon in St Lucia with TalkSport's Cameron Ponsonby.
Jamie, the last match of quite a long white ball tour, how would you assess your time out here?
Yeah, it's been great. I've bowled sort of the amount I want to bowl. I think everyone's sort of in quite happy with how things have gone personally. So yeah, it's just trying to finish the tour off well and yeah, trying to get that 4-1 win in the series.
Just on your own bowling, you didn't bowl yesterday. Can we infer from that that you are fit and available to bowl today?
Yeah, I'm fit and available to bowl today. I've got a few things that I've got to try and do before the game starts, but yeah, everything's in the right place and ready to go.
Can you just walk us through how you manage that return to bowling? Because I imagine for yourself, you're normally batting, bowling in the slips that long on. Yeah. Being a specialist number 8 with the bat must be quite a bizarre experience.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I sort of feel like I'm getting a bit of stick back home for deciding to do that, but like it's just one of those. I think my role is to come in at the back end, and yesterday I wasn't needed because we had such a good platform and just one of those things, but it's to try and just influence the game as much as possible whenever I get the opportunity, and sometimes it works with the bat, sometimes it doesn't necessarily come off because other lads have scored all the runs, so it's just going to try and impact the game whenever I can.
On the flip side, how much confidence do you take from the fact that people like Rob Key, people like this England management group are saying, we think you're so valuable, so special with the bat that we'll have you at number 8 even if you're not going to bowl?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite a sort of niche role to come in the end and try and finish games off or get the score up to a good competitive score. So it is a nice feeling that you're being backed, and yeah, hopefully I can sort of keep this role going and keep going with it.
These Dre Russ comparisons, can you clear up, are they actually true? Because I keep on reading back the quotes and I realise we keep on saying to you, people comparing you to Dre Russ, and you go, I don't actually know where this has come from.
To be honest, I don't know where they come from, but it's a nice comparison because like we both do similar sort of roles. So yeah, it's a nice comparison, but like I've not heard anything about it.
So you can confirm that in the 100, when you're with the Manchester Originals, they're not saying Dre on the sidelines,
No,
whatever.
they're definitely not saying Dre.
God, an exclusive on TalkSport. Just finally, on this series, we've had 7 matches, 7 games that have been won by the team that have won the toss. Have you ever played in cricket where conditions have played such an impact?
It kind of depends where you are in the world. I think in England it doesn't necessarily make a massive difference. It's when the dew comes down, it can have a big impact on the game. It decides to become a bit easier for the side batting setting and a bit harder for the bowlers because you've got a bit of a wet ball, the footholds are a bit more slippery and it makes it a bit harder. So yeah, I'd say it's something you've got to try and find a way of managing, because you're not always going to play games in England. You've got games around the world that you've got to try and learn how to deal with it. But yeah, it is a difficult thing. Like, I think we had probably got enough runs on the board yesterday. We probably just didn't quite bowl well enough for the first sort of 10 overs, and that sort of set the game up for them to win quite easily.
And we are on the same pitch for a 3rd match in a row.
Yeah.
Does that mean anything? What can we read into that?
I don't think so. It doesn't feel like it broke up at all. It's all in the first 2 games. So I think it'll be another good wicket tonight. The sun's been out for the last couple of days, so it's dried out, and yeah, I think it could be a quite high-scoring game again.
Jamie, best of luck today.
Cheers, thank you.
Jamie Overton speaking with Cameron Ponsonby earlier on this afternoon. Gareth Batty, Surrey head coach, and therefore a man with a vested interest in Jamie Overton's recovery and fitness and well-being. We've been talking a lot about this plan and this return to bowling and all. How does this all actually? Let's break it down into simple terms. How does it all work? England presumably contact Surrey and say, we'd like to take him on the tour of the West Indies. You say, well, we've been working with him to get him fit, therefore can we suggest that? Or do England say, what do you think? I mean, how does it all work? How have we got to a stage where he's bowling one game, not another, bowling one and then not another?
Every case is very individual. When it's a centrally contracted player, England take the lead. But obviously, Jamie's our player, and then England select him, so he's got a contract for that tour. So our duty of care and our sort of process to look after him is passed on. And in this instance, particularly with Jamie having 2 stress fractures in the last couple of years, it's a really important phase to get right. Now there'll be people out there, and there's times where I would question myself as well, because we're professional sports people, we're there to play. But on this occasion, if he gets another one in the same area, we're talking real high-end surgery, which we're trying to prevent. So we're trying to keep him out there playing, but also manage that body and manage the bone structure that obviously has taken a load. So there's an amount of remedial work that he's trying to take the stress away from that area, and he's done a heck of a lot of physical work to try and make himself more robust. So, for some guys it might be they've got to lose a little bit of weight to be able to take the impact a little bit more. For some guys it's put a bit of weight on to strengthen areas. So it's all very much individualised. The fact that he's out there being able to play some cricket, whether he's bowling or not, is a positive from a movement pattern and a physicality. So the fact that England want to pick him and not bowl him is wonderful from him. From a physical point of view, it's difficult for him with his skills because he's a 3-facet player. So to not have one of those skills is difficult. And like he said, some people will be having his badge that, well, what are you doing? It's TFC and all this sort of stuff. But that's part and parcel of the world that we live in. But it's very much duty of care that we want all players at Surrey to play for England for whatever if selected. On this occasion, it has to be with the lad's future at the heart of decision making, and we really do need to be crossing I's and dotting T's, because we can't have that stress factor coming back, because it's a really dangerous time for him, and it's something we're trying to avoid.
So this really is, it's not done on the back of a fag packet job. This really is absolutely laid down as to where he is physically and what he is capable of doing and what he's not capable of doing.
Yeah, so I think he came back, started playing some games the second half of the T20 for us. At that point, he'd already had a month, if not 6 weeks, of really high-intensity physical work before we even got him thinking about some skill stuff from a cricket perspective. So we did at the club, Alex Tyso did a back-to-bowling analysis for him on historical things that we know about his loading, and when he's got the injuries, what he's done up to points, and he stayed injury free. So there's huge amounts of the back knowledge of information to then mould what it looks like now, to still be thinking future that, look, let's try and keep building on on the positive that he's back playing. But if we just all of a sudden just whack 20 overs in from nowhere, you could get straight back to square one, and that's where he goes under the knife, and that's what we're trying to get rid of.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you very much for clearing all of that up. It is TalkSport 2, the TalkSport Cricket YouTube channel. We are 15 minutes away from the first ball in the final T20 of this series. England have won the toss again, and the West Indies will be batting first. England have made 2 changes to their lineup for this final game. Jofra Archer and Adil Rashid back into the starting lineup. Dan Mosley and Saqib Mahmood are the men to miss out. Romario Shepherd is in as the one change for the West Indies. It is his 50th T20 international. He is in for Obed McCoy. Obed McCoy, of course, only brought in on Friday because of an injury to Matthew Ford. And to be honest, he looked a bit stiff last night. So Obed McCoy is out. Romario Shepherd is back into the side for the West Indies. Just by the way, just one other piece of news out of the England camp today. It's been announced that fielding coach Carl Hopkinson and assistant coach Richard Dawson will both leave their roles with the white ball side at the end of this tour. So in other words, tomorrow or Tuesday. That, of course, Brendan McCullum appears to be changing things up before he takes over the white ball side as well in the new year. So just that news out of the England setup today. Let me give you the full 11s. So the West Indies batting first will be Shai Hope and Evan Lewis opening. Nicholas Pooran, Rovman Powell, Shimron Hetmyer, Shafane Rutherford, Roston Chase, Romario Shepherd, Gudakesh Moti, Akil Hussain and Alzari Joseph. And the 11 on duty for England tonight: Phil Salt, Will Jacks, Joss Butler, Liam Livingston, Jacob Bethel, Sam Curran, Jamie Overton, Rayan Ahmed, Jofra Archer, John Turner and Adil Rashid. And as I say, West Indies put into bat once again. So far, all of the matches have been won by the side winning the toss. Will that play out this evening? We will find out. And over the course of the next few hours, let's take a check on today's odds with William Hill, with our friends Lee Phelps.
In the Zone, Sport 2 with William Hill, 18 plus, gambleaware.org.
Good evening, Lee. So we've seen lots of win the toss, win the game. Is that reflected in the odds?
Yeah, but only just. I mean, we've been saying every time, haven't we? It's even money 4 to 5. It just depends who's even money and who's 4 to 5. But it's virtually a pick 'em, really. But the West Indies are the outsiders. Obviously, only just at even money. England win the toss, so they go 4 to 5, and that's basically what's been happening. Given this kind of anomaly of how many ODIs and T20s have gone that way, you think maybe the odds would have slipped slightly shorter on the toss-winning team, but it is what it is. England just a touch of odds on, as we've seen throughout this. I guess the value here is picking the top run scorers, isn't it? And it's flip-flopping between the two of them. I know we've been on the side of Phil Salt quite a lot. There's an interesting bet that I'll tell you about right at the end, but just a few of the enhanced odds. Josh Butler to score a 50 was 9 to 4, now 11 to 4. Now he's got over 25 quite a few times at this stadium, but not quite got on to the half century. So 11 to 4 if you think Josh Butler gets over the 50 mark. Shai Hope, West Indies top run scorer, has been enhanced from 5 to 2 to 3 to 1. Obviously, been one of the stalwarts for the West Indies throughout these the ODI and the T20s. England to win and Will Jacks to be top England run scorer was 6 to 1, now 7 to 1. That may well attract a bit of attention. I think it's an interesting one, like I said, around Phil Salt and Shai Hope, both to score a 50, 19 to 2. So that's just a shade under 10 to 1. That's Shai Hope and Phil Salt both to score a 50. Wouldn't surprise me in the least, and you're getting half a point just underneath 10 to 1 for that one. But I'll go for England to win again, and I do like that. Phil Salt, Shai Hope to both get a 50.
Yeah, very interesting, that one. Thank you very much for that one, Lee. Today's odds with William Hill, it is for over 18s only. BeGambleAware.org.
In the Zone on TalkSport 2 with William Hill, 18 plus, gambleaware.org.
Right, we've heard from the England camp. Let's hear from the West Indies camp now. Their batter, Shafane Rutherford, has also been speaking earlier on with Cameron Ponsonby.
Shafane, we've had 7 matches in this white ball series. All 7 have been won by the team that's won the toss. Have you ever played in a series where conditions have played such an important role?
No, I never had played a series where the toss decided, but I think it's mindset as well. We might say that the toss plays a big part, yes it does, but I think in game that we lost, we didn't respect the start and respect the fact that, England bowled well early up. But it's a learning for us, and, it's just something for us to consider next time and, respect our starts going forward.
Earlier in the series, your captain Rodman Powell said ahead of this series even starting, when he saw the start times, he was like, that's too early, it should be 7 p.m. Is that something you agree with?
Well, it's just something that we're accustomed to do, playing in the evening. Playing 4 o'clock is very different to us, but as I said, it's all in the mind. It's a learning for us as well, so I think next time, we just need to adjust and adapt, and I think as a team we are willing to do that, so, moving forward, hoping that we can be better.
It's been about a year since you've become a real regular in this Windies white ball side. How do you assess the year that's just gone by, and what are your long-term goals for playing for the West Indies?
Well, I must, give some thanks to franchise cricket. It helped me become a good player mentally. Playing a lot of franchise cricket in different conditions, has prepared me well coming in back to the West Indies. And my goal is to obviously, play as much for West Indies. I love it here. It's something that my parents always want for me. So, I'm doing this here, and I'm enjoying it. I'm loving every moment of it, and hopefully I can continue to perform and stay in the team.
Yesterday we saw you and Roston Chase kind of finishing off the match in quite a calm manner, and then out of nowhere you just decided to hit 2 sixes into the crowd. What were the conditions like at the end of yesterday's match?
Well, it was a good wicket, but sometimes with pressure, as a player you tend to, lose your shape or try to overthink it. But I was thinking along the way and tell myself to just remain calm, and that's one thing, for me learning going forward is just keep it simple. And I think when you keep it simple, you can always, do the impossible.
And last couple of questions. One, we're on the same pitch for a third match in a row. Does that mean anything? I don't know. Is it going to change? Is it going to break up? What's happening?
Well, St. Lucia is known for the best wicket. I don't think it's going to change much. It's going to be a bit flatter, so it's going to be a belter. So I don't think the toss is going to matter today, but let's see.
Shafane Rutherford in conversation with Cameron Ponsonby earlier on. Delighted to say that Major St Patrick Hewitt from the Caribbean Cricket Podcast is with us once again in the commentary box. Good evening to you, Mash. One change for the West Indies. Romario Shepherd back into the lineup for his 50th T20, and they remembered to present him with a cap this evening before the game. In for Obed McCoy. What do you make of that West Indian lineup?
Yeah, I think that probably speaks to, well, first things first, hello. I think it probably speaks to the fact that Obed looked rusty yesterday. Physically he looked rusty, in the field he looked rusty, and I think they even alluded to it, I can't remember if it was pre or post match, that if Romario had been fit, probably Obed wasn't going to play. So this just probably is a reflection on the fact that Romario is fit enough to play this game. It balances the side out better, it makes the batting even deeper for the West Indies, and at this stage, given Obed not looking like his match fit, Romario is the better bowling option because he's got the ability to swing the ball as well.
Look, no team ever wants to lose, no team ever goes into a series trying to lose, but if the West Indies were to win the last 2 matches of this series, therefore make it 3-2, what would the overall reaction from the Caribbean cricket public be, do you think? Would 3-2 be acceptable?
Yes, but only because only because if they bat first and win the match from batting first, then I think that proves a lot of doubts wrong about their inability to win matches batting first. So I think it's more about, and you could even flip it onto England. If England win 4-1, but they've won doing what they also like to do. So both teams are in this weird, they're almost in this weird zone where for either side they're going to come out of the series, well, England will win it no matter what, but having done what they wanted to do when they win matches. So I think if it ends 3-2 and West Indies are able to win the final 2, they'll more reflect on the fact that if they can do it batting first, then there's positives to be taken.
I suppose, yeah, it's always the thing is you can lose, but it's the way to lose. If the West Indies had gone, if the series had gone like 1-0, 1-all, 2-1, 2-2, then 3-2 would feel different than if you lose the first 3 and the series is gone. And actually, it's easy at that point to chuck the towel in and go, well, it doesn't matter now. We lose 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. It doesn't make any difference. You've still lost. But actually, they hung in there and they showed more spirit last night, and certainly with the batting. We spoke about it during the game yesterday and also in the following on podcast about the fact that the power play, they weren't 3 wickets or more down.
Yeah. And ultimately what that will show Darren Sammy is that when West Indies get it right, they get it very right. So all is not lost in terms of reflections.
Well, the players are on the way. We're a couple of minutes away from the first ball. So eyes down for a full house, everybody. Evan Lewis and Shai Hope are on the way. England's bowling attack. Jofra Archer, John Turner, Jamie Overton can bowl this evening. So those are the seam options. And then you've got Adil Rashid, Rayan Ahmed, Liam Livingstone. So there's still plenty there, even though they've left Dan Mosley out. Dan Mosley, by the way, just in case anyone who's wondering, no injury there. It is just purely a selection rotation thing. So if you're a fan, don't panic. He's not hurt. And we're about to get underway. Gregory Brathwaite and Leslie Reef are our standing umpires this evening. Zahid Basarath is the man who is going to be on replay duties. And Jofra Archer has a new white ball in his hand, having had a little bit of a break. Chance to come tearing in one last time this tour.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying before we get underway that for England to bring back Adil and Jofra for this match tells you very much they want to win. Not that they, of course, wouldn't want to win otherwise, but it tells you that they want their best team out, and they want what they deem to be their best team, and they want to close out with a win.
Well, it kind of goes against what they said, because they did say that everyone would get an appearance, and Michael Pepper hasn't. Yeah. So the fact that they've gone back to what is their gun side does rather give you an indication. Right, Evan Lewis is going to be the man on strike. Jofra Archer is around the wicket. There's 2 slips in place. Here is Archer, and Lewis is solidly forward. Pushes up to mid-off, and there's a yes-no. Oh, we've seen this film before with the West Indies. Both batters get back. There's no throw from Livingstone. And all you need to know is Shai Hope is giggling at the non-striker's end. He's seen that film before as well.
Yeah, I was giggling along with him, to be fair. Surely he can't affect a third run out in quick succession. But I think he sees the funny side of that.
Yeah, that funny side will quickly wear off, though, if it happens too many more times. Here's Archer around the wicket for the second ball. Edged just over Overton at slip. Lewis has gone with the horizontal bat at that. Gets a top edge, and it flies over Overton. And the West Indies are underway with a 4. Second ball of the innings, 4 without loss.
Very much similar to what we saw, well, not at the start of yesterday's play, because actually West Indies took only, 5 runs off the first 12 balls, whatever it was. But Evan Lewis was flashing a lot in yesterday's game, and he looks like he's not going to be hanging about today either.
He was trying to fetch that from about 2 metres outside of off stump over the leg side, and it hit very low down on the bat on the edge and flew through third for 4. So that gives you an idea. There was some movement on that as well from Archer, and there is on that one as well. He's in round the wicket, and it's moving away to the right, the left-hander. He doesn't play at it, and it's through to the keeper. No run. It was very noticeable. There wasn't any movement yesterday. It went round corners on Thursday, went gun barrel straight yesterday, and it's back swinging again today.
And given that it is swinging, well, based on that first 2 balls that we've seen, England have got the best person to exploit that early doors.
I mean, it's not really fair, is it? 143 Ks and swinging it. I mean, jeez. Give the rest of us a chance, mate.
I think Evan Lewis will go after it.
Archer in short ball. He's pulled to the leg side and toe-ended it through cover for a single. It's literally gone 180 degrees from where he was aiming. But he'll get a single. It's 5 without loss. And Jared Kimber's with us once again.
Beautiful push through the covers, wasn't it? Off the toe end of the bat.
Well, I was going to say you pay for the whole bat, but obviously the players don't pay for the whole bat these days anymore.
Someone paid for the whole bat. That's remarkable. Well, he's now tried 2 full shots. He's hit 1 over slip and 1 to cover. Mate, keep him up. He's scoring off him.
He's just working his way around the field. This one will go straight. Flat bat past the bowler. Right, Shai Hope will be on strike. These two played so brilliantly last night. Lewis, 68 from 31. Hope, 54 from 24. But they went in consecutive deliveries. Now, England have got still a slip in place, but they've got a leg slip instead of the second slip. That one, you can hear, is swinging back in and thunders into the thigh pad. Will go all the way out to the edge of the 30-metre circle off of the thigh pad for a leg by West Indies, 6 without loss.
Yeah, if Jofra's going to get that ball moving to Shea Hope, he wants to challenge Hope outside the off stump. Hope, that's where Hope wants it, but at the same time, that's always most likely to get Shea Hope nicking off most likely. But we'll get to that duel possibly in the second or third over as third over because Evan Lewis is back on the stroke.
Final ball of the over. Archer around the wicket. It's inside edged. Another short ball outside of off stump. Phil Salt dives away to his right-hand side, going towards the fine leg side, and there's no run to complete the first over. 6 without loss. So we've had an edge that's flown over slip, a toe end that's gone to cover, and an under edge that's gone to the keeper in the first over.
He's aware he can play those balls on the offside. He doesn't have to keep trying to drag them meters to the leg side. You know what round the clock is, Macca?
Yes.
So I don't know if you know this match, but they don't talk about it as much. But really good batters, especially when in the net, sometimes they'll just say round the clock. And no matter where you bowl it, they'll hit it to square leg, to mid-wicket, to mid-on, and they'll keep doing it. Garfield Sobers did it against Notts one time to show that he should be the overseas player rather than another West Indian who was in at the time. He's done an accidental round the clock there, all trying to play the same shot, and none of them going actually where the clock was facing. Well, does the clock face? You know what I mean?
Yes.
The hands?
John Turner.
How do clocks work, Macca?
From the pavilion end. Comes in and bowls the first ball of the second over. It's on the pads of Shea Hope. It'll be turned to wide mid-on. Joss Butler will do the fielding. They will take a single. Turner 1 for 42 from his 4 overs last night. Starts with 1 on the pads of Hope, and it's 7 without loss here on TalkSport 2 and the TalkSport Cricket YouTube channel, of course.
It was intriguing to hear Shafane Rutherford say that he thinks this is more of a belter than yesterday. So you have to assume West Indies know they've got to post at least 220 again. But then we didn't see any movement like we saw in that first over yesterday.
We did in the second innings, though, didn't we? So we have seen some movement off this pitch, but it only lasted, it was fleeting. It was a lot of movement, but it didn't last very long. It's very common in St Lucia for them to use the same pitch 2, 3, 4 times in a row, which isn't that common in the rest of the world.
I can think of a test match where they've done it recently. It was a slightly different set of circumstances. Turner over the wicket to the left-handed Lewis, who's beaten on the outside edge through to Salt, no run. Genuinely beaten as well. And he's walking down the pitch to prod at it. Don't know why he's bothering. It's like the main road down to Castries.
Yeah, tentative push there by Evan Lewis. As you say, Macca, genuinely beaten there.
I thought that was swing, but that looks like seam. I think he was right to prod at that one, Macca, actually. That seemed to have just gone violently away from him.
Turner runs in, sort of elbows jutting out, and Evan Lewis is swinging away at this one. And I think he might have inside edged it onto his own thigh. It just dribbles down in front of him and there's no run.
That's 4 pull shots, and so far he's got the ball absolutely nowhere. We're just seeing here on the on the TV graphic that he's made 84 runs since 2022 playing the pull shot, an average of 12. I'm shocked that the average is that high. Before that, he used to average 26.5 and a strike rate of 256. So he certainly changed a little bit. He's playing the pull shot a little bit like I think I would.
Listen.
But he's only averaging 12, but he's doing a strike rate of 168, so
Handy.
It's quick. Turner in, leg side-ish, in towards the thigh again of Evan Lewis. It's turned on the leg side. Sam Curran will field, just a single taken, 8 without loss.
I just need to look at the boundary dimensions to see if that's played the role in why Evan Lewis is persistent in targeting the leg side, but I'll get back to you though.
Well, unless they've changed the boundary from yesterday, it was 63 square either way and 71 straight, which ain't massive, however you put it.
So, in that case, and I can't give him that as his, as his justification.
Turner into the right-handed Hope, who drives on the up through extra cover, but he threads the eye of the needle between extra cover and mid-off, and there's a boundary for Shea Hope. The second of the West Indian innings, 1 ball to go in the second over. They're 12 without loss.
Perversely, that's where you should be bowling to Hope. If it has a bit more movement, that's your chance of getting Hope nicking off. I mean, it's on the up. It's not. I wouldn't say that's the ideal shot that Hope wanted to play to that, and I wouldn't be too despondent if I was John Turner.
Yeah, absolutely. Turner's got his hands on his head on that one. Goes in and bowls again. Slightly shorter of a length. Hope is trying to force, but with no timing on this occasion, through the covers, and it will dribble back to the bowler. 2 overs gone. You're listening to TalkSport 2 and the TalkSport Cricket YouTube channel. West Indies put into bat by England. 12 without loss after 2 overs. Lewis has 6, Hope has 5.
If there's anything we've seen, it's just that when the ball is bowled short, it's just holding up a little bit. So we've seen 4 false pull shots so far, and then again Shy Hope trying to force that one through the covers, just not coming on. That's where we saw that seamers have their most success last night. Jofra Archer is more suited to that than anyone else on this wicket as well, so it'll be interesting to see how this over goes.
It's interesting for the West Indies that starting this series was Brandon King and Evan Lewis, and they're very much still unsure who their best opening pair is. But if Lewis and Hope get off again, Brandon King will be sweating about his role in this side.
Absolutely. Archer for his second over around the wicket, and Evan Lewis said that one's into his wheelhouse, and it goes all the way over mid-wicket for 6. It goes over straight mid-wicket, but Jofra Archer, even though it's a fraction under 144 kilometres an hour, just bowled it into the slot as far as Evan Lewis was concerned, and he might have had a few issues in the previous over, but he got all of that one.
Well, that feels like what he was trying to do the 4 previous attempts where it didn't come off, but the difference there is he wasn't trying to fetch that from the 10th stump line. that was actually in his arm.
It was also a lot fuller. Probably too full, all things considered. So it'd be interesting to see if Jofra just straight away pulls his length back here.
Well, England's 2 outside the circle are a deep fine leg and a deep mid-wicket at the moment. Archer in around the wicket. Now that climbed, and Lewis had to get on top of that one to drop it down at his toes for no run.
That was the one to pull, and he was like, no, that's not what I wanted.
First genuine lifter we've seen there.
Yeah, had a bit on it, that one, didn't it?
It took a while, if I remember yesterday, apart from Alzari Joseph, it took a while for both sides to realise that maybe you might want to just bowl a couple short and see what it might do to the batter.
Absolutely. Archer in around the wicket once again. Oh, now that one's armpit height, and Lewis does really well to ride the bounce on that one, get it down to Rayan Ahmed at fine leg and take a single. That really could have been a world of trouble, but it's a single in the book and it's 19 without loss.
Yeah, nasty delivery that from Jofra Archer, and wasn't played conventionally but played well all the same by Evan Lewis.
Shea Hope then settling in. Jofra Archer bowling from the media centre end.
So I think Jofra should go a touch fuller here to Shea Hope, but
let's see. Archer in over the wicket. It's a short ball. Hope's gone on the pull. It's gone straight up in the air, but it's going to clear everyone and go over the boundary at fine leg for 4. It landed just short, and Jofra Archer turns round and just starts laughing because he's thinking, how is that not out? Well, the breeze is from off to leg from this end, and Hope got enough of it for it to get up and into the jet stream, and it landed about a foot inside the rope, and Turner had no chance, and Jofra just stands and giggles.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to look at the reaction of the players there to understand what's happened. Shea Hope thought he was out. Jofra Archer looked up to the sky wondering how he wasn't out, and Josh Buttler clapped Jofra Archer because it was that good.
Interestingly, Hope just turned to the umpire and says, was that 4 or 6? It was 4. He's aiming an absolutely massive straight drive at the next delivery from Archer. Doesn't time it, and it'll go to Livingston at mid-on. There's no run. It was very interesting that Hope actually asked the square leg umpire. Sort of turned around and said, was that 4 or 6? I think maybe what he was trying to do was get them to, I don't know, get a review on it or whatever, but no, it very clearly landed inside.
I thought it was 6 as well.
First up I did, and then I saw the replay.
Yeah, so I could see why Hope, when he originally saw it, thought the same.
Yeah, not bad for 6 when you think you're going to be out. Strange old game. Archer in. Oh, Shea Hope's jumping in behind that one. There's some pace and some bounce for Jofra Archer. He's bowled 2 overs now that have cost 16. 3 have been sent down by England. 23 without loss to West Indies. So it means they're going along at just under a fraction under 7.7 and over so far. And remember, last night they posted 218 for 5, which set England... England posted 218 for 5, which meant the West Indies needed 219 at 10.95. So they've got off at a decent rate again this evening, the side batting first.
Yeah, not as explosive as once they started getting going yesterday. It's not as explosive yet. Do you know what? Yesterday there was actually a maiden. Oh, hold on, yeah, there's a change.
Jamie Overton it's a bowling day. As we heard earlier, they basically bowl in one day, then rest, bowl, and then rest. So today is a bowling day, and he's going to bowl the 4th over of the innings. Right on over the wicket. He's getting Lewis to come forward and push into the offside, and there's no run.
I think Evan Lewis thought there was a run there, but I think Shea Hope was right to not be interested.
I can see why Lewis thinks there is, but I can also see why Hope at the non-striker's end, because it's not going that far away from him. I can see why he also has no interest, because it's only going to take a small deflection or something like that, and he's going to have a problem. Overton in once again, bowling a hard length. It's hit to cover to Will Jacks by Evan Lewis, and there's no run.
Yeah, Evan Lewis... See, I still don't think... Yesterday he scored 68 off. I think it was 32 balls. I'll go and double-check how many balls it was. But, I'll wait for... Was it
31? You're sacked.
But I never thought he was that in control in that 68 yesterday. And he doesn't look in control today either. But I guess runs are runs, however you get them.
Overton over the wicket once again. Lewis is swinging this one into the leg side. 1 bounce 4 over long on.
Well, he's climbed into that one and pulled it, and again he's targeting that leg side, which is his favoured side today. But again, was that properly timed? He looks like he's toe-ended it a bit and plugged in the outfield and then rolled off for 4. But
it sounded like he hit it with a wet fish rather than a bat. It just didn't come off completely right, and he got enough on it to get clear over the top, but he certainly didn't time it. He swung very hard.
Yeah.
17 from 14 balls is Evan Lewis at the moment. Overton is in once again. Now that one's nice at times, and there's the great irony of cricket. He gets nothing for it because it's straight to Jacks at cover in the offside, no run.
I think Overton's bowling the wrong length here. He's bowling at the top of the stumps here. I think they need him to hit the pitch very hard on this surface, and we've already seen one ball go straight up and another one that wasn't even that full get scooped over the top of mid-on for 4, and 4 other pull shots not go anywhere. You've got to get them into this surface.
England have a ring of 5 on the offside for Overton as it's whacked over the leg side. 1 bounce. No, I was going to say 1 bounce 4, but Sam Curran does brilliantly to walk a tightrope twice. Once to stay in the playing area, and then after he's batted the ball back to Jacob Bethel, he then had to tiptoe across the huge, great tarpaulin sheets that are just behind the rope out there at deep mid-wicket. And of course your spikes aren't going to go into those, and Sam Curran was very nervous about going face first into the advertising hoardings, and he stayed on his feet for both. Great bit of work by Sam Curran to save the boundary, and then also to save his face.
And to save I was going to say to save the covers. He did kind of put holes in the covers all the way through with his spikes, but that's the ball. It's shorter, it's into... The only reason England didn't get a wicket there is he picked the gap between the 2 fielders out. If that would have been towards either of them, he's walking back now.
Overton now to Hope. Hope backing away to leg. Plays a little punch to extra cover where Adil Rashid is stationed. No run. 4 overs gone. 28 without loss. Lewis 18 from 16. Hope 9 from 8.
That's a good over there from Overton. Only 5 off it. I know obviously Jared said he could have been bowling a better length, so to speak, but to only get away with 5, and again Evan Lewis not really looking in control within those 5 runs, so I'll give that one to Overton.
Yeah, probably got away with the 2 outside off stump, partly because Evan Lewis is so focused on hitting to the leg side that when he got I wouldn't say a looser ball, but a ball he could just punch through normally, he wasn't in a position to do that. This is the interesting over for England, of who they go for this 5th over now. because you would probably prefer it to be Jofra Archer again, but then you're not leaving yourself a lot. So it's going to be Turner. I thought they might go back to Turner.
Yep, the 3 seamers so far. And here is Turner. Evan Lewis has given himself some room on the leg side. He's not got all of this one, and he's just lobbed it up, but Liam Livingston can't get around from mid-on to mid-wicket to take the catch.
I need to put together a highlight reel of Evans 19 and 68 from yesterday, and work out his control percentage.
I don't know how he's not out. He's mishit everything, even the boundaries. It's remarkable. There's probably that one good shot off Jofra that he picked up from off stump, and everything else has just come from every different part of his bat. And again, I just thought that was out. I just see the ground crew putting on their hoods, Mako.
There is certainly one of them. Or is he? No, he's taking off his sou'wester, I think.
That's all right then.
We like that. They don't want to see sou'westers today. They did have a little bit of rain in St Lucia earlier today. Oh no, hang on. I think he was putting it on, because we've now just seen that the aforementioned group of ground staff going over to the aforementioned cover. Shai Hope is not hanging around. He's got a ball that he can whip away through mid-wicket, and it's away for 4 from Turner. Hope goes to 13 from 9 balls. The West Indies are 33 without loss as the 5th 4 of their innings is hit.
As Jared alluded to prior to us seeing that Turner was going to bowl the 5th, I think this would be a premeditated over for the West Indies to target John Turner here to really get a motor on. But Jared, something that I do want to come back to on Evan Lewis when he's back on the strike is, why is he not going offside? It's not like he hasn't gone offside game.
Turner into bowl to Shai Hope, hits hard, and another ball has not hit the middle of the bat and has blooped into the offside, and it lands about 5 metres away from Will Jacks. There's an awful lot of balls getting mishit at the moment and just lobbing, which on another day the West Indies could be 40 for 3 at this stage. As it is, they're 34 without loss.
Bloop is the correct term for that shot too. Because he tried to hit that very hard, and it just sort of towards cover, didn't it? And cover almost overran it, because everyone thought he was going to hit that harder than he did.
Is this pitch just not playing as well as we thought it might after all of this? Turner is in once again. Well, Evan Lewis has decided to take the pitch and the field out of the equation, because he's just hammered that one into the breeze over mid-wicket for 6. Evan Lewis has that shot down pat at the moment. Everything else seems to be more of an effort. He's gone to 25, and the West Indies 40 without loss.
I'm going to be slightly critical of John Turner there, though. We've seen that Evan Lewis is trying to drag everything into the leg side, and by bowling that line and allowing Evan to back away, it's allowing Evan to pull to that side, whereas I'd bowl to the 6th stump and ask him to fetch it.
Turner in once again. Evan Lewis has hit down the ground, clears mid-on, 3 bounces 4. Everything at the moment, Evan Lewis starts in a perfectly normal batting stance, and then everything gets opened up. It's like a spring uncoiling, and everything is going leg side. And England seem to be feeding that shot at the moment. West Indies 44 without loss.
Well, at this point, if you're out in the field for England, it's not like Evan Lewis hasn't told you what he's trying to do. He's not told you what he's trying to do here.
Final ball of the 5th over. Turner in, and Evan Lewis has got hit on the head, and he was trying to pull. Breaking news, everyone. Evan Lewis was trying to hit it to the leg side. That one gets big, it rattles him on the lid. I imagine the medical staff are going to come out and have a check. The helmet is coming off from Evan Lewis for him to have a look. 5 overs gone, 44 without loss. Lewis has got 29 from 20. Shai Hope has got 14 from 10. Jared Kimber will enlighten you with some wonderful words of wisdom, incredible statistics, and then John Norman and Gareth Batty will come in.
Yeah, it was a big hit on the head, and I tell you what, it was so big that it's actually brought the clouds out, in fact, and a sensational effort by the local TV sound person, who's just motoring his way through the middle of the ground to pick up the microphones as well. But yeah, it's just started to rain. We thought it might be. That's a much better length on this wickets, then I think some of the lengths, again, I just think England have been too full. I don't understand it with Evan Lewis, because every time they've gone short, he's either mishit a pull shot or he's been hit or looked uncomfortable, and they've continually bowled full. And when they're bowled full, he can hit them. Now, he's hit a few of them off different parts of the bat. There's probably been a couple that he's timed, and everything else has gone a little bit squidgy, a little bit bloopy, as Andrew McKenna called it before. It doesn't look like it's horrendous rain at the moment, but it's certainly coming in. We've got the big covers out, and we've got the big guns on board. John Norman and Gareth Batty.
Oh, he means us. I was looking round. Is Harmy here? Goffey? No. Manners? Well, I mean, you wait 5 overs, and I mean, I was just sitting outside the commentary box, and you take your cues, didn't you, from the cadence, especially when Macca's on. And I would say on about 8 occasions, his commentary halfway through the delivery suggested to me that a wicket was about to fall, and either the ball dropped short or went just a little bit longer than what he or possibly England and West Indies are expecting. It's been a bizarre 5 overs.
There's been a lot of balls just hit up in the air. Even a couple of the timed ones, like Shai Hope went through the covers, just perfectly catchable and went between the two. And Evan Lewis, when they finally got the length right to him and they got him to play the pull shot again, he hit it in the air towards the 2 fielders they had, but between both of them. It was a great effort by Sam Curran for it only to go for a single. We had the top edge that went for 4. We've had a couple that have gone over mid-off and mid-on that could have been caught on another day. It just feels like the ball's going up, but it's just not landing in the hands. I think England should count themselves fairly unlucky to not have taken a wicket so far, but that's what the West Indies also do, is they punish you because they swing so hard that even some of the miss-hits are going for 4 and 6.
Yeah, I think that's been the key from Lewis. He's swung so hard, he's got himself in some pretty poor, powerful positions at times where he's got very square on before he's trying to play the shot, and he's skewed a couple just over mid-on and just in a gap through mid-wicket. You can see England's plan, and it's actually almost worked without actually taking the wicket. And you just feel like there's something in what they're trying to do, but we're talking about international cricket, and you know the guy's going to have a day out, and he's throwing caution to the wind. It's just his day at the minute.
It's now absolutely pouring, by the way. I would suggest the better option is probably to bowl that metre or 2 shorter than they have at the moment, because they've hit him on the head. The pull shots, when they were shorter, they were the ones that he edged over the top and everything else, and the one that he should have been caught out on the boundary. When it's been around the bail height, he's been playing the same shot, but much better. So I think they've got the execution of the idea slightly wrong, but I'm also saying that, and within that, he still should have been out.
Yeah, he should have been, but it's almost been 2 rules of thought. Archer basically went around the wicket and stuck it at 6 off stump and still bowled the same length, but Overton and Turner have bowled over the wicket. So their margin for error, if they get anywhere near the body, it's gone more out of the ground, and he's looked a bit more comfortable with that. Anything that's been outside the eye line, again, he's not as confident, and I think it's that technical position where he's very square on as opposed to side on, where your left hip stays back and the power's generated, and that's why you get you forced through the pull shot. So I think England have, if we're being brutally honest, they've just been a fraction unlucky. They've just not had that lady look where the ball's gone up into an area where the fielder would have caught it. But fair play to Lewis, he's certainly swung hard, shall we say.
He's clearly made a decision on which side of the field he wants to hit the ball to. I'm not sure. They've got all these fielders on the ring on the offside. I'd love to. I mean, England have had some pretty fun fields. It'd be great if they just brought everyone over. Well, not everyone. You're allowed to have 5 players on the leg side, aren't you? Yeah. So it'd be interesting if they just do that in a minute, as if to say, mate, if you're going to hit it here, just hit it here.
Well, we have got a little bit of a break in play. So whilst we wait, there was news this week. Or was it last week? It was last week that one of the all-time New Zealand greats, Tim Southey, has decided that the 3rd test against England is going to be his last test match, unless New Zealand make it to the World Test Championship final, in which case he'll make himself available for the final, which is taking place at Lord's at the start of June. But I thought, as we haven't really spoken about it, and because we are, of course, covering that series in New Zealand, to get your thoughts, Jared and Bats, about the bowler himself. I was actually quite surprised when I looked at where he stands in the list of all-time wicket takers. I mean, there's some pretty serious names in and around him. Now, this is a guy that's actually polarised opinion in New Zealand, and there's, a fair amount of people out there who actually feel he's quite fortunate to have played as many tests as he has gone on to do. Shades of maybe of Capel Dev towards the end of his reign, Courtney Walsh, but of course New Zealand have got quite a few bowlers waiting to come in. So, where does he stand? He's always going to be quite a big step down from Sir Richard Hadley, but apart from the great one, he's there, isn't he, Southey?
Yeah, he's probably just behind Bolt, isn't he? You'd have him behind Bolt, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I found interesting about New Zealand is that, has any team, possibly the Great West Indies side, has any team ever fielded 3 of the best 4 bowlers that they've ever had
at one time,
and consistently as well?
Probably Bangladesh at the moment might be the other answer to that. But I get your point. Look, I think what happened with Tim Southey was he burst onto the scene at 19. I remember writing at that time saying he looked like a 300 wicket taking bowler, and New Zealand fans were just like, "What are you talking about? He's too slow." I was like, but he's just going to be able to bowl at the top of off stump for the next 10 years. He's just got to stay fit. But within that's not really what happened, is it? He struggled for a long time. He actually lost pace. He was bowling at around 126, 128 for a little while there. I think it was Alan Donald who worked with him and got him back up to that 135, 136 situation. He then got the wobble ball from Kyle Mills, that three-quarter seam one that came back, so suddenly he could move the ball both ways. Look, he doesn't have a great average, but when they were their best team, him and Bolt were the backbone of that team, right? Like, you had to get through the new ball, and if you didn't get through the new ball, Wagner was going to cause you all sorts of problems later on. So that was the strength of that team, was those 3 guys. I don't really understand the hate for Tim Southey, but I do think you and I have watched a lot more New Zealand cricket than probably someone like Bats has. There is a lot of time where he just seems to come in and bowl outswingers outside off stump for like hours on end and nothing happens. He can be quite a passive bowler at times. And I think in the last 3 or 4 years, he's become a little bit more attacking is the wrong word, but a little bit more incisive and looking for wickets. Whereas I think before he was happy they weren't going to hit him; he was just going to keep that ball outside a little bit. So he's learnt and developed. I feel like New Zealand fans expected something different from someone who bowls 130 Ks who's really tall.
I think for the listeners, read out his numbers there, Jared.
So he's taken 385 wickets at 29.88 with an economy rate of just under 3.
It's a brave person to argue that he's not had a wonderful career.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm calling some people out there. I'm saying, hang on a second. Best part of 400 wickets, played a lot of games, and been the backbone, like you say, of their ability to take 20 wickets. Yes, most great bowlers have a partner. So his partner in Bolt, and they complemented each other beautifully. Bolt bringing it back into the right-handers. And if anything, he had a bit he had that upward rotation where he's a bit slingy towards the slips. It was more sort of drift out to slip at times, is what you were saying. But it's still an ability to move the ball. And then the work he did with Donald, he basically came more over the top. So he could bowl straighter to swing it later and probably swing it less, but have a stronger type ball.
Yes.
Which is bizarre to get older and end up bowling quicker and
there aren't many bowlers that do that, 7-8 years into their test career to get quicker. I always use him as a test case of you probably can't put on 10 or 15 Ks. Was it Craig White who got hit in the head and started bowling 15 Ks? There aren't many cases of that. There aren't many cases of test bowlers putting on any pace at all, right? Like Wokes and Southey would be 2 that I could think of. And he did it without really stopping being what he did. I think you're right. I think he changed a little bit. Instead of hooping like he did when he was younger, he probably went a little bit more and used his height a little bit better as he got older. I thought he was a fantastic bowler, but I can also understand, I think the average of 29.88 is kind of right at that cutoff of that's maybe what you would expect from a test bowler during that part of his career, from a seam bowler. Do you know what I mean? It's not exceptional, but it's not terrible. But the thing is, when he could take wickets with the new ball, he gave them a huge chance, and then they had other options around him. He didn't have to be the main strike bowler. He was probably what Chaminda Vaas should have been for Sri Lanka, which is your second or third most important bowler, but your most dependable bowler.
Also a fine slip fielder in the end,
especially for a bowler, because they're usually rubbish.
Yeah.
Not spinners, bats.
One of the I read an article. It was actually written quite a few years ago. And essentially, he always had the outswinger, and then, as you say, he developed the wobble ball But essentially, he said he tried for years to bowl the in-swinger, and he could never do it. And he wasn't quite sure how he got the outswinger either. And then he started worrying that, well, I don't want to mess around. I don't want to mess around here and lose the outswinger, and definitely, there's no guarantee I'm going to get the in-swinger. But he marvelled at like Jimmy Anderson. He watched him. He used to watch him and try and replicate it. And in the end, he just had to say, well, I can't do it.
I think the thing that we're not talking about as well is played half of his games in New Zealand with a kookaburra ball.
Yeah.
That is arguably the hardest ball for fast bowlers to bowl with.
Especially a swing bowler.
Yeah, because it doesn't swing a huge amount. So for him to have had such a career, but it was weird because he did start definitely. I remember him playing county cricket back in the day. I think he was at Essex, and he was very much. Lads were going, we'll just stay a bit leg side and throw our hands at it because he'll bowl down fourth off stump, a little bit sort of floaty, swingy stuff. And I think it was probably the back end of that where he just learned from, the Duke's ball does swing, doesn't it? So you learn how to make it work for you, because sometimes you can almost swing it too much, if that makes sense. So you work the angles. I think towards the end of his career, he went wider of the crease to bowl it at the batter to swing it on the outside edge. Again, his arm got higher because of that, so he gets a stronger ball. It's all about angles and that sort of not around the axis of his body. He's going over the top of the axis now.
I think he's got one of the highest release points in the world, where he's only, 6'4", 6'5"? Like, he's not 6'7".
Is he that tall?
I think he's...
Yeah, he's quite a big man.
Yeah, I don't think he's a small guy. Have you ever stood next to him? He's not...
I have, yeah.
I would say he's 6'4", 6'5". He's not massive for a fast bowler, but he's quite tall. But you look at his release point, and it's closer up there with the 6'7", 6'8" guys. And I don't have the full numbers, but I don't think that would have been like that all the way through his career. I think that's something that he's definitely changed. And as you said, I love the idea that he just spent years not being able to find this in-swinger, and then he was like, I just need another method, right? And I think that's... I remember talking to Tim Murtagh about this once. I said to Tim Murtagh, how did you bowl the off-cutter? Like, it's such a good off-cutter. And he goes, oh no, sometimes I try and bowl out-swing and it doesn't work. And like, if that's the case, you don't want to touch it. And he said, I never wanted to try and change my outswinger. Like, it was working when it occasionally came back in. I couldn't control it. Whereas I think Tim Southee had a similar thing, but he went to himself, no, I have to be able to do this on command. And I would say the last 3 or 4 years, even as he slowed down again, his mastery of bowling went up.
There's, of course, we're focusing on his Test career, but actually, he's the leading T20 wicket taker in the history of the game, internationally, I think.
Okay.
And he's got the best figures in ODI cricket for New Zealand as well. That famous win for New Zealand over England.
That was ridiculous.
In the World Cup in 2015. It was ridiculous.
I mean, that was one of the... It just felt like he had a remote control onto the stumps and that. I remember I was watching that with Andy Zaltzman. We were in New Zealand at the time. And we just kept, everyone... You'd turn around for a second, you'd come back and he would just seem to be bowling someone, or it's just... And the ball was just sort of going around like a computer game.
He's taken majority of his wickets against England. It, of course, was part of that New Zealand side that... What did they bowl England out for? It looked like they might even... I think Craig Overton actually played. It was at Eden Park, and Trent Boult and Tim Southee essentially reduced England to about 24 for 7, I think, and then bowled them out for next to nothing. In terms of... And this is where it's going to come back to a lot of New Zealand cricket fans who... And I think partly one of the... Part of the angst is, and has been, for New Zealand cricket fans, looking at bowlers that maybe weren't given as much of a go as they would have done if Southee had, either not become captain or not been the coach's first pick or whatever. And to say their names now, Mitchell McClenaghan, Matt Henry has missed a lot of cricket, of course. Neil Wagner was kind of forced to retire. So, there have been...
Who was that? Oh, Matt Henry was the other one.
Matt Henry, yeah.
He's the only one on that list. And aren't they all late? Like, there was a long period of time
isn't it?
when Southee was bowling, and, Chris Martin was coming to the end of his career. Ian O'Brien was struggling with injury. I'm trying to think who their other seamers were around that.
Daryl Tuffy.
Yeah, Daryl Tuffy. He was even slower than Southee was.
Carl Mills.
Yeah, Carl Mills.
Jacob Oram.
Yeah.
Jacob Oram.
So we're talking about a lot of guys who were injured a lot, who weren't always available. The thing about, availability is the best ability at a certain point, isn't it? Like, and that is something. I've got one for you. So this is quite interesting when you go through. These are the test matches that Southee played. So he averages obviously 29.88, and I've only looked at the other seamers in his test matches. Trent Bolt averages 26.71, which backs up what we said, that he was slightly better. Neil Wagner averages 26.77. So those are the two teammates he went up against. He's not averaging massively worse than either of those two.
He had a longer career as well.
Yep. Stuart Broad averaged 28.13 in the same test matches. Again, very similar. Matt Henry averaged 30.5. And Jimmy Anderson, in these same test matches that Tim Southee played in, with the same balls and the same conditions, 28.11. So it doesn't suggest that Tim Southee was massively off any pace. The only bowler who completely blitzes him is Kyle Jamieson, who averaged 19.73. But he was pretty special for those 5 minutes that we actually saw him on the park. But if you look at all the seamers in the same matches that Tim Southee played with all the way through his career, the overall average is 31.81. So he's about 2 runs better per wicket than all the other seamers combined, but over 385 wickets. That feels like, to me, a fairly good advantage.
I'm starting to wonder why anybody's questioning this fella. And I wouldn't say we're particularly bigging him up here. We're just saying the facts and presenting them as they are. This guy's had a wonderful career. I can't. The haters, I just think, go to bed and wake up a different person tomorrow. I don't understand it.
Well, he's had a 16-year career, and I just wonder how many test matches has he missed due to injury?
Well, they don't play many. He'd have to be unlucky to be injured at the time they play.
And Matt Henry.
Oh, no.
There's 2, right, that have missed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's still something. It's a bit like Jimmy Anderson, isn't it? And you can't put a figure on just being available for that amount of, 16 years.
I'll put it to you another way as well. And I always thought this was the Jimmy Anderson, Dale Steyn argument as well. I think pound for pound, even Jimmy Anderson thinks Dale Steyn is probably a better bowler, and Dale Steyn thinks that Jimmy Anderson's more skillful. But when you start to look at the length of their careers, there is a certain point of how many years you have Jimmy Anderson available for you compared to how many years you have Dale Steyn available for you. So would you pick the better bowler, or would you pick the player who is available for longer, who's almost at the same level? And I think that's what Tim Southee is for me. For 16 years, they basically didn't have to worry about who was taking the new ball. You're a coach, but that's such an advantage, I think, over a long period of time, to just be like, he's getting the new ball, he's not going to waste it. Occasionally he's going to bowl absolutely brilliantly. Some days it won't work because of certain pitches, but he's very rarely going to let us down.
Yeah, I speak to lots of coaches outside of cricket, and it comes back to the same thing. You want something that you can depend on. You want particularly in cricket, you want a base level average to be able to say what your team is going to be. So bowlers, you add their cumulative strike rate together, you know roughly what the side can get, and you do the same with the batting. You know roughly what you're going to score, and then within that, hopefully you have a couple of youngsters or a couple of unknowns who raise your standard of your team. But averages can tell you an awful lot. You've got Mr. Dependable there. You're obviously going to go with the tried and tested because you need some kind of solidity to every team. There is no team that has been successful in any sport where you don't have some form of dependability.
Okay, so let's throw it forward to the test series that's coming up. It's in a week and a half. It starts
24 wickets, an average of 12.
Thanks. Note that down. We've just commentated on a ridiculous series involving New Zealand. They of course beat India 3-0. Even saying it now, having commentated on the entire series, it still defies belief what the Kiwis managed to achieve. They're now still in the hunt for the World Test Championship final. They could get there with a 2-1 win, but a 3-0 win over England will pretty much guarantee their place in the final, right?
That would mean that they've never won a 3-0. They've never won 3-0 in a series ever before. They've never won 3 tests in a series before this, and they do it in back-to-back series. It would be a remarkable period of time if they... I'm not saying they can't do it.
Well, they had a similar run, didn't they, on the way to the 2021 World Test Championship final. We know the England squad, we know the New Zealand squad, we know the grounds, Christchurch, Wellington and Hamilton. What's your I mean, not prediction, but considering England go there fresh from defeat in Pakistan, it's going to be obviously 3 Test matches played in conditions that are going to favour New Zealand. How do you see it going?
I thought New Zealand, the second time they played England, handled the buzz ball about as well as anyone, perhaps even better than Australia did. There was a moment where Harry Brook got in their heads a little bit and they didn't know how to play against them. But in general, I think they're sort of understanding how to go about that. I still think they may be... I still wish they had Jameson. Right? I wish he was fully fit. And, Sears, I've seen little bits of Sears, but I'm not quite... But if they had 4 strong fast bowlers... I'd be really, really interested in New Zealand winning that series 2-1, as you said, perhaps pushing towards 3-0. But without that, I find it's maybe going to be a little bit more, could go either way. The thing I don't know is what kind of pitches. Because the one kind of pitch that you don't really want to give England at the moment is a flat pitch. And that's what New Zealand have been putting out for a long time. Green pitches that actually play flat more often than not. Do New Zealand want to go result-orientated pitches and just hope that they can get the 3 wins that way? I don't know.
Sure, they're just going to do the tried and tested. Because England are coming at you. They know that. So you plan for that in your thought process of how you set your bowling lineup. You're going to have grass on your pitch to create bounce and a bit of carry. So behind the wicket becomes effective. Your catches are going to carry. But your batters can also score runs. You don't see much lateral movement in New Zealand, do you, really?
Not as much as you certainly used to. You get a little bit on day one, don't you? And then it usually flattens out. I just wonder if we go back to some of the older New Zealand wickets that are maybe have 2 or 3 days of lateral movement, just to say to England, we think our techniques are more solid. I mean, you look at the New Zealand lineup and you look at, Blundell and Mitchell and Conway and all these guys, their techniques are just probably more repeatable than the England batters. Do you want to test them out that way?
Better basics.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if you want to give England one of those flat wickets where they could score 450 in an afternoon and a half, because, that puts you under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, from speaking with people in New Zealand and Tommy Latham and people like that, they won't care what England do. They'll create a pitch that is best for them.
That suits them,
yeah.
What about the England bowling attack? Because when England were there in January 2023, their bowling attack comprised of, I think, Ollie Robinson, Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, and Jack Leach, and Stokes. And Stokes was bowling. Now, of course, there's still question marks over Stokes bowling, and obviously no Anderson, Robinson, or Broad. The bowling attack, how big a challenge is it to go and play in New Zealand for the first time? If you're Gus Atkinson or you're Bryden Carse, Chris Wokes. I don't even know if Chris Wokes has played in New Zealand before. Should probably check. He might have played in that game actually in 2018.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Either
sure
way, it's quite a difference, isn't it?
You look at it and you say, barring a spell here and there, you're going to have to earn the right to take your wickets, because pitches generally are pretty good. Who is leading the England attack, I think, is the main question, because you've lost Anderson, Broad. Robinson led it when he played, to be fair to him. All good teams need somebody to drag everybody else with them. Where do England look? Who is the man? Is it Wokes, and can he play 3 on the bounce? If it is Wokes, it's a lot of pressure, because outside of England, he wouldn't have bowled a lot with a red Kookaburra ball, we know for fact, and his numbers wouldn't be wonderful with a Kookaburra ball. It's quite a big series for England, I reckon.
There's another point of interest, or something that I found interesting. When you look at the top wicket takers from that 2023, it's only 2 tests, but Stuart Broad took 10 wickets, Jimmy Anderson took 10 wickets, Jack Leach took 10 wickets. Who do England go with as their spinner? Who's
Gareth
it going to
be?
They've probably got. They want to go with Bashir because they want to back him, and because of New Zealand's left-handers, they've probably got a reasonable case to say we're going to go with the guy turning it away from the bat. What is it? Is it 3 out of the top 5 are left-handers?
Conway, Latham,
And
Ravindra.
Yeah, that's not too bad. I can see that. I suppose it's also, I know it's different kind of wickets, but seeing how he bowls away from subcontinental conditions and everything else, if he's going to develop, he should develop there, right?
Well, they've got an eye on him bowling in the Ashes.
Well, that's what I mean. Like if they want him to go to the Ashes, you don't want him to have not have bowled in New Zealand or South Africa beforehand. I would have thought.
But are you trying to win the series? Because if you're picking your best bowler, Leach is your man. Has to be.
I mean, I would probably pick Leach, but that's not. Do England try? Aren't they just trying to win morally?
I don't
You
know.
win anything.
Winning doesn't matter anymore. I'm sure I've heard them say that before.
So
It's about vibes.
So
we should do that at Surrey.
So
Mate, I could get sacked tomorrow.
we're thinking Chris Wokes opening the bowling with Gus Atkinson, Bryden Cass, or would it be Matthew Potts?
Should be Potts in New Zealand, shouldn't it?
I don't know. Potts and Wokes.
Yeah, I'd go Cass. I think he's got just a bit more energy on the ball.
Aren't Atkinson and Cass too similar as well?
Yeah, they're all a bit similar if you're being brutally honest about it.
Yeah, there's kind of two different types, isn't there? There's the Atkinson Cass type, and then there's the Wokes Potts type. Yeah. Look, yeah, I suppose it's not ideal. Is Turner a bolter? Is Archer a bolter?
Neither, no, because I think the team are already on the way to New Zealand.
Yeah, and also he just said he's not playing the IPL, didn't he? So, you know, I'm thinking a Mohammed Shami type thing where Archer's like, actually, they're coming out all right over here, guys. You got a spot? But my memory of Jofra Archer is he may never want to go back to New Zealand again.
I was at that test match in Mount Maunganui when he bowled 42 overs. I mean, I can't imagine
In
you
a
bowled
row.
42 overs that often.
Lara again?
In an innings? Yeah, maybe. The wreck?
Yeah, I mean, people scored so quickly off me. You didn't need 42 overs. The game was probably declared and done by that point.
Yeah, that was something. Yeah, I'm not sure he ever actually recovered. Jofra Archer is stepping out from the IPL draw, which takes place in Saudi Arabia next week. Is it, Jared? Towards the back end of next week.
Yeah,
24th or 25th, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Is it over two?
It's during the first test, India-Australia, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, if you're listening to us here on TalkSport 2, unfortunately we have had a rain delay. We're not just talking about New Zealand cricket for the sake of it. The fifth and final T20 of what's been a compelling series. England going 3-0 up, and then West Indies hitting back yesterday. But this is the final match of the series, and the bad news is we've had heavy rain. Only 5 overs available, with the West Indies being asked to bat first, and through a little bit of luck they've managed to get through those 5 overs without losing a wicket, but unfortunately the rain has come. 44 without loss after 5 overs, as Shai Hope 14 not out, and Evan Lewis 29 from 20. We've seen Jofra Archer bowl a couple, John Turner, and one for Jamie Overton as well. He didn't bowl yesterday, but has bowled 1 over tonight, which has gone for just 5 runs. Gary Morgan says Gareth Batty bowled 42 plus overs in an innings 11 times. The most you ever bowled in an innings, you know? I know you won't know.
No.
55. Surrey against Gloucestershire.
Oh, yeah. We bowled them out for like 100 and then they got 9,000 when we made them follow on. It was ridiculous. Jason Roy got 3 wickets in like 4 overs to bowl them out first innings. It was ridiculous.
What does he bowl?
Filth. Just like
nothing.
Little sort of seamers that run into the stumps.
I think I have seen him bowl before, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't. So yeah, that's where we are. Unfortunately, the forecast in the short term isn't too pretty, but we shall see. We're not going anywhere for the foreseeable. Jared, in terms of the T20s that we've seen, winners and losers, who would you say stands out from an English perspective?
I think Phil Salt's looked pretty good, hasn't he? It's funny, Will Jacks was talking about how he didn't think he was batting particularly well, and I thought he was being a little bit unfair on himself at times. I actually like the way he'd gone about some of his innings. He might not have got the runs that he wanted. I'm not sure have many players from England have been exceptional. They've sort of all chipped in at different times. If you look at who's probably the best player in this series, it's probably been Akil Hassan, isn't it, so far, I would say. He struggled, obviously, in the last game, but was exceptional in the first few. And what would Phil Salt be the other one on that list?
I'd say so. I've been really impressed by Salt. Sam Curran's batting has been pretty good.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, some of the problems is he's given some of that back with the bowling, I suppose, at times. But yeah, his batting's been fine. Is Jamie Overton playing in the series? He had a really good last game, Jamie Overton, where he didn't bat and didn't bowl. Do you still have to pay your match fee?
Were you a little surprised? You can't say too much, Bats, but
he's got him in invisible handcuffs, not letting Jamie Overton bowl.
Well, he's commentating on. Well, he would have been commentating on Jamie Overton bowling if he'd come in for the 5th over. I mean, England do have a lot of players to pick on, or pick to choose, but it does seem. I mean, you can't really say much, but it does seem slightly strange to pick a guy that's clearly not fit.
I think they were incredibly happy with how he went in the Big Bash last year, but then obviously came back to England with, you know, the injury sort of cloud above him again. But they liked what they saw in Australia. And obviously he's a different kind of a bowler to everybody else who's been wearing the England shirt in recent times. He's 6 foot plenty, bowls a very strong, heavy ball going over the top of the stumps. He's not easy to get underneath to hit expansively over deep square leg, etc. And you definitely can't get him downtown. It's hard to hit back over his head. So just from a bowling point of view, he covers off power play if you want him. He bowls hard overs in the middle. I wouldn't suggest you'd look at him death at the minute, and I think England from a full pick have got that kind of covered off anyway. And then you chuck in the mix, he strikes a very good ball and he's a good fielder, so you totally get why England want to get him in there. And as much as anything, a man coming back from injury, if you got a free pick, get him out there, get him running around, get that physicality back into him maybe.
Quick question about Jacob Bethel and also Dan Mosley. Your thoughts watching them on the circuit over the last couple of years? Not necessarily about how they've gone here, but more in terms of the talent that they possess, and also, you know, they've got something about them.
Yeah, I think Bethel for 2 years people have spoke very highly of him as a talent and as somebody who has huge potential. The key for him future-wise is to turn potential into consistency. Professional sport is about consistency of, well, particularly batting. It's a numbers-based game, isn't it? So it's down to finding a method and being able to do that on a regular basis. Mousley's actually got a bit more sort of street cred numbers behind him. He's had a good couple of years, and he's done it the hard way. You know, he's really come through the sort of academy ranks at Warwickshire and really earned his stripes, and it's kind of the more preferred way I would kind of like it to be, that England gets selected with good performance, so that you come into this environment and you know what your plan is, you know what your method is, you know how you're going to go about it. And he certainly hasn't let himself down in the games that he's played. And every now and again it's nice that a wonderful talent like a Bethel gets thrown in there, but I don't think you can have too many in one go. So I think it's unfair to the kids that you just keep chucking them in, because you may as well just play under 19 cricket, if that makes sense. So no, I think they're both in pretty well, to be fair.
Brilliant stuff. Well, look, we're going to listen back to how the first 5 overs have taken place at St Lucia. The rain is still hammering down, and it does look a little bit bleak as we stand here. England 3-1 up with this one to play. West Indies 44 without loss when the rain came, with Evan Lewis and Shai Hope picking up where they left off after that big run chase. Huge victory for West Indies in the 4th T20. Plenty more from myself, John Norman, Jared Kimber, and the Surrey head coach Gareth Batty to come. But now let's just have a listen to hear how the action has sounded so far on TalkSport 2.
Just over Overton at slipped. Lewis gets a top edge and it flies over Overton, and the West Indies are underway with a 4. Archer for his second over around the wicket, and Evan Lewis said that one's into his wheelhouse, and it goes all the way over mid-wicket for 6. Hope's gone on the pull, it's gone straight up in the air, but it's going to clear everyone and go over the boundary at fine leg. Shai Hope is not hanging around, he's got a ball that he can whip away through mid-wicket, and it's away for 4 from Turner. Turner is in once again. Well, Evan Lewis has decided to take the pitch and the field out of the equation. because he's just hammered that one into the breeze over mid-wicket for 6. It is TalkSport 2, it is the TalkSport Cricket YouTube channel. Yes, sorry, we do not have much good news for you at the moment. We are in a rain delay, and as you were hearing there when we left it, the West Indies were 44 without loss after 5 overs. Evan Lewis 29 from 20 balls, Shai Hope 14 from 10. England had used 3 bowlers, Jofra Archer bowling 2 overs 0 for 16, John Turner 2 overs 0 for 22, and 1 over of Jamie Overton for 5 runs. England making a couple of changes today. You'll have noticed because he was bowling. Jofra Archer back into the lineup, as was Adil Rashid, Dan Mosley and Saqib Mahmood, the men to miss out. 1 change for the West Indies today. Romario Shepherd coming in for his 50th T20 international, replacing Obed McCoy. And, well, that is where we are. I've got to be completely honest with you. It looks pretty awful at the moment in St Lucia, so let's basically keep our fingers crossed for the time being. But there is, I would say, about 8 sheets out on the outfield at the moment in a sort of a capital I shape, straight down the middle of the pitch, and then protecting the bowlers' run-ups and the long-on, long-off areas where we've had problems for the first game on Thursday. So, and by the way, the rain's still coming down and there's a decent amount of water on top of those sheets, so it's going to take a decent clearing up operation as and when it stops. And I've got to tell you, the direction that the rain is coming from is still pretty filled in, so that may not be for a while. So for the time being, myself, Andrew McKenna, and Meshel St Patrick Hewitt from the Caribbean Cricket Podcast are going to discuss the FAS and chew things out for a little bit longer. And one of the things I'd like to get your opinions on, Mash, is obviously one of the good things that Darren Sammy has managed to achieve as head coach of this West Indian white ball side is to get the big names back and available and playing. Do we ever see the same thing happening for red ball cricket, though? Because we always say world cricket needs a strong West Indies. The West Indies need those players available. Do you see it happening in that form of the game?
Oh, right, okay. So I'll try to give 2 different views on this. So let's start with the answer that everyone wants to hear, which is yes, that some of these players who we see quite frequently in the white ball sides will turn up and play a test match before their careers are done. The only reason that could happen is because earlier this year, Miles Bascombe, who's the director of cricket in Cricket West Indies, announced that no longer did players have to play in the domestic championship, Red Ball Championship, to justify being selected in the test squad. And by extension, he was also saying that goes for the white ball teams as well. So if you don't play in Super 50, which is going on right now concurrent to this, that doesn't mean you can't get into the West Indies ODI squad and T20s, etc. Now, a lot of people immediately within the Caribbean media took that to mean, well, he's essentially saying that Nicholas Pooran can play test cricket then, if he wants to, and Shimron Hetmeyer and Evan Lewis and so on and so forth. Whilst I don't think you can make the immediate assumption that that will lead to players like that playing test cricket, it at least opens up the door for the possibility. I think in the past, there has been too much adherence to tradition and almost scoring own goals in preventing players playing just because that's the way it's always been done. If Nicholas Pooran isn't going to play in the West Indies domestic championship, how can we possibly pick him for test cricket? And what I always tended to say to people is, in this kind of England Bazball era, is I don't think Brendan McCullum would have any issue with picking Nicholas Pooran to play for England if he had a Nicholas Pooran equivalent player doing what he does in Jacob Bethel. If he had an equivalent player doing what he does in white ball cricket. Now, so that's that. But then here's the second part of that, or of that point I've made. Do the players genuinely want to play? I used to say yes. I'm not as certain now anymore, just because when I used to say yes, T20 cricket hadn't exploded into what it's now become, where there's seemingly a T20 or T10 tournament on every day of the week, seemingly, right? So the options have increased. So I just don't see how some of these players turn down T20 contracts to come and play for the West Indies Test side when they don't need to. So the way around that, how do you therefore get Nicholas Pooran, Shimron Hetmeyer, Evan Lewis and Cole to say, let's even throw Brandon King in there. He's not played a Test match yet. Shea Hope hasn't played a Test match since 2021. So let's use those 5. How do you get them to then say, to get them into the Test side? Here's a novel thing. I've said this now for 3 years and I still won't change. You pick them. You pick them. The next Test squad, and obviously we've got Bangladesh, that's already been picked. After that is Pakistan. You pick them and make them say, no, I'm not interested. And I cannot understand how that is so difficult a concept to understand. If Nicholas Pooran doesn't want to play Test cricket, make him turn it down publicly so that everybody in the region knows he actually doesn't want to play Test cricket. Right now it's too easy for Nicholas Pooran to say, well, essentially nothing on the issue because he's not been picked anyways. But next Test series that they have, how about you pick all of them and say, oh, by the way, we've picked you for the Test squad, and then all of them go, yeah, but I'm not going to play. So
I do quite like that. It's sort of force majeure, isn't it? Yeah, it takes that air of, well, we don't know. There would be categorical certainty.
Yeah.
Declare your interest one way or the other. Turn up with your kit, or tell us, no, we're not interested, and thank you very much. Everyone will then know where we stand.
Yeah, we all move on. And then there doesn't need to be that conversation anymore. Now, I'm sure if there's anybody from Cricket West Indies listening, I'm sure there's someone, but I'm sure if somebody from Cricket West Indies is listening, they will say, and this is true in fact, that, well, actually, funny enough, the tour of Australia earlier this year, when West Indies pulled off that miraculous win at the Gabba, they did reach out to Shea Hope and said, we want you to go. And Shea said, actually, I've not played enough cricket to justify going to play some red ball cricket in Australia. Apparently, they reached out to Brandon King. Apparently, he also said, I don't think I can go play in Australia at this point in time. So it's in their defence, it's not like they're not trying, which is why West Indies find themselves in such a difficult position, because how often can you keep going back and saying, we'd like to pick you? Oh, sorry, I'm not available. Yeah, no, but we'd like to pick... When do you throw the towel in and say, oh, what's the point? Like, we can't get them to commit.
Can I ask the ugly question?
Go for it.
Jason Holder spent quite a lot of time talking about match fees. What does a West Indian Test match player get, roughly, as their match fee? Because that's the other thing, isn't it? We all know that the money in the game is in white ball cricket. And actually, we heard Marcus Trescothick say recently that England are seeing 50-over cricket as an extension of T20. It's just becoming a longer version of a similar style of game. So actually, there's kind of a point for some of the white ball specialists to come back and play other formats there, because other teams are looking around the world at it, that if you go and make a quick-fire 70-odd in an ODI, that might very well pick you up a T20 gig, as you mentioned, in one of these myriad tournaments around the world. But is there... there's got to be a pull to make you want to go back and play West Indies. As we've just said, there's so many white ball opportunities around the world. You can basically walk from country to country and pick up a gig somewhere or other. So to make you leave that merry-go-round, there's got to be something special. There's got to be something pulling you. And I'm afraid to say, in this cold, hard professional sport world of late 2024, the lure of the baggy green, the purple, the maroon floppy sun hat, that don't cut it anymore. It's about pounds, shillings and pence.
Yes, Yes, I was trying to find a way to say no, but yes, I think Cricket West Indies, in fairness, in defence of them, they've just given out multi-year contracts, similar to England. Obviously, they've given out. So I think that's the way forward for some of these cricket associations, where they're trying to find a way to keep the players invested. So if I'm trying to remember now who's got them. Shea Hope's got a 2-year. Brandon King's got a 2-year. Jaden Seals has got a 2-year contract. Seen a bit of movement here, but Jaden Seals has got a 2-year contract. So that's one way, and that goes back to your point. No, that's about money. That's like we are giving you security for 2 years, and you'd like to think that the argument is, in return, please make yourself available when we need you. So it's got to be a bit of quid pro quo. But what Cricket West Indies would also argue is that they have cleared their whole calendar so that everyone can play IPL. You and I will both remember that traditionally the West Indies cricket summer was in the IPL window, right? So they've cleared that whole section for IPL. They've cleared their whole calendar for CPL. So their argument will always be the top players can go IPL and make serious coin. All the Caribbean players can make coin in CPL. All we're asking is make yourself available for West Indies outside of that. And I don't think that's too much to ask.
Well, no, absolutely. And if you're giving out central contracts, then absolutely. Now, England, you can get a white ball contract, you can get a red ball contract. If you've just got a contract, then it goes back to the previous point we were making of pick 'em and say, well, actually, you signed the contract.
Yep.
You are therefore available for us.
Yep.
We expect to see you next week. Myself and Patrick Hewitt, myself, Andrew McKenna are chatting away here on TalkSport 2. Sadly, we can't bring you live cricket at the moment because it is still raining in St Lucia. Now, what the ground staff have elected to do is they're starting to move some of the covers, but what I think they're actually doing is getting rid of the water that is already on the covers to try and reduce the amount that they have to clear later. It is still raining. So effectively, they're dragging off some of the edge sheeting out to the boundary edge and depositing that round about the boundary and then bringing it back at the moment. The sky is still pretty grey and heavy at the moment, and it is still coming down. So we have no possibility of play just yet, but it feels like they're trying to get ahead of the game here, the ground staff at least. It's not a case of, well, they've all disappeared off to the groundsman's hut for a cup of tea and whatever, thinking, well, it was going to be raining for the next 40 minutes, therefore we got 40 minutes off. I mean, it is still coming down, but they're at least trying to be proactive. So we've got to applaud them for that at least.
Yeah, we're going to slowly start to reach that stage where we have to talk about overs and time lost and so on and so forth, but we're not there yet. I've seen situations like this before. I'm trying to give everyone hope who's listening, but I've seen situations like this before where it looks like the game's going to be called off, but actually they find a way to get back out there. But yeah, looking pretty bleak at this particular point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's a ground that isn't in the centre of town like the old grounds in Antigua and various other places around the Caribbean. It is a bit out of town, and it is Sunday afternoon turning into Sunday evening, and you wouldn't be surprised if some of the locals are checking out the bus timetables already. Let's put it like that. So at the moment we have nothing concrete for you in terms of this game, but that is where we are at the moment, and we await further news. In terms of getting these guys to play red ball cricket, one way is to say, right, let's get them back. And another way, I suppose, is to say, well, let's find the next generation. Very interestingly, Rothman Powell, when he was doing his post-match interview yesterday, was asked about fast bowlers and the lack of them in the Caribbean, which, for anyone over the age of 30, just sounds absolutely implausible, because it was like Welsh rugby and outside halves. They used to just walk down a mine in the valleys and find half a dozen. It used to be you could walk down any street in the Caribbean and you find half a dozen fast bowlers just having a natter. How is it that the West Indies now don't have fast bowlers, and how did they get them back into the Test side?
So the number one issue, which I think is only belatedly been rectified or started to rectify, is the quality of the pitches. If you look at take the Red Bull Championship in the Caribbean and you go back probably even 10 years now, and that's not an exaggeration, the top wicket takers year after year after year have been spinners, whether Nikita Miller, Versamy Permaul, Rakeem Cornwall, Jamel Warrican. Every single year the spinners are leading the wicket charts, and that's just not conducive. Now, the way they tried to get round that was, again, rather belatedly, is say, right, bonus points for fast bowlers taking wickets to stop teams essentially bowling spin from about the third or fourth over. And it's
really, it was getting that bad.
Yes, some teams been opening with spin, I think, in a Red Bull game. So, in order to stop teams just packing their teams with spinners and bowling teams out for sub 200. Points were being awarded to teams who are taking wickets with fast bowlers, which is the right thing to do. They've also done that in the 50-over version of the game. So it's something that they've recognised as we have a problem here. The second thing that I think will help is the creation and introduction of the West Indies Academy, because that commitment to finding the next generation of players and putting them in that academy in Antigua and ideally working with them from anywhere between 1 to 3, 4 years, as long as they're of age, I think at least means you're identified. It's like talent identification. You're not waiting for Jamaica to produce someone, or Guyana or Barbados, etc. You're going in-house and identifying the best youngsters in the region, keeping them in-house in Antigua under the watchful eye of the Ramesh Singh as the academy head coach, and that's where the best facilities in the region are. So I think that's your best way of finding the next generation of, in this case, fast bowlers. But the problem is, and this goes for all sports, but in this context we're talking about the West Indies, how patient are fans willing to be? So whilst results are still not consistent or improving, are they willing to trust the process and say, yeah, but in 5 to 10 years we might have some people coming through?
Well, as we all know, it's what have you done for me lately, isn't it? It has to be now. Just to go back onto the pitches, what do we think happened to them? I mean, if you're my age, you think of Sabina Park, Jamaica, that was so shiny that the old joke was you could shave on it. So what happened? Did the pitches just get old and tired? Because I remember talking to Barry Richards many years ago in South Africa, and he was talking about some of the pitches there. And he said to me, people forget, cricket pitches, it's grass and it's soil, it's a living thing. And it has a lifespan. And after about 25, 30 years, you have to replace it. And he said, too many situations are allowed actually to get that square or part of the square to that tipping point, and when it goes really, really quickly. Is that maybe what happened with the West Indies? I mean, how did Sabina Park go from being the fastest pitch on God's green earth to places where people bowled spin? So what you've just kind of quoted there from Barry Richards is pretty much close to the answer here. I'm going to say it's twofold. One of the issues is that the pitch curators in the region, and having spoken to, again, Miles Bascombe, Director of Cricket in Cricket West Indies, this is something that he told me, that they just haven't been upskilled. And that has been an area that has been identified in their kind of developmental plan for West Indies cricket for the next 4 or 5 years, that they need to upskill the curators, the pitch curators around the region, because they've been stuck in, again, a traditional way of doing things which isn't fit for purpose for now. So that I've been told is issue number one. And then issue number two, prior to the World Cup that was held earlier this year in the summer in the Caribbean, they obviously, you have to do due diligence before a World Cup. Obviously the ICC get involved, etc.
and they went around the region looking at the different pitches and realised that underneath the surface, I'm going to get this, I wish I had my notes to hand here, but if I remember rightly, underneath the surface, in some of the pitches, there is too much, I want to say, did they say clay? Whatever it was, there was too much of the wrong material underneath the surface, and they've had to start digging them up and relaying pitches around the region because it doesn't have they don't have what they need to be up to date with pitch quality in 2024. So that's why ahead of the World Cup, a lot of the pitches were getting relayed. But again, something like that's not something you just fix with a flick just like that. And right, everything's better now. That's also going to be a long-winded process.
Well, it's interesting that the head of the West Indies ground crew is the groundsman at St Lucia, which is widely known to be
one of
the best pitch in the Caribbean.
Yep.
So you put two and two together, and yeah, that's quite interesting. But also, am I right in saying, because I was talking with Philo about this off air, was it yesterday or Thursday? The Darren Sammy ground only gets used for international cricket, or is there a team that plays domestically out of it?
So within the Windward Islands, you'll have the inter-Windward tournament. So St. Lucia, Grenada, Dominica, St. Vincent. So you'll have St. Lucia must play some, obviously not just the Kings in CPL, but as in the St. Lucian national team, surely will play some cricket there and train there. And maybe the inter-island tournament will be hosted at different of those four that I've just mentioned, be hosted in kind of like quadrangulary, if that's or even a word.
We'll go with it this time on a Sunday night.
So each one will get a chance to host it. But yes, it's not used frequently enough to put them in. They keep it in good condition, so maybe that's why.
Well, to say that was kind of what I was wondering. Is that the secret then, that actually less is more in terms of use? I mean, we see how much Lords gets used, in England, and not just for first-class cricket as well. You get the university games and stuff, and they move quite a lot of stuff now onto the nursery ground. But you think how many days cricket a year? That's got to put a huge amount of pressure on the ground staff to actually get quality wickets every single time.
But one of the other problems as well, and I can speak to this for Jamaica as an example. So Sabina Park in Jamaica, obviously historic heritage ground around world cricket. Everyone knows a story about Sabina Park. But Sabina Park nowadays is used for keeping what we say in Jamaica dances. So big musical functions are held at Sabina Park, but also the JPL, the Jamaica Premier League, the football tournament, hosts matches there. So you talk about upkeep of a cricket ground, and Sabina Park nowadays is being used for parties and football, more so than you'd use it as an international cricket ground, and that has an effect. That you're not even using it for its primary purpose. So there's things like that to consider as well.
There was talk at some point of building a new venue up near Montego Bay, because as we've seen with England tours at the moment, it does seem that the West Indies only put England into venues which are basically nice holiday destinations, hence Antigua, St. Lucia, Barbados. So there was talk of building a venue up near Montego Bay, because that might be a bit more appealing than downtown Kingston. Not that I've got anything against downtown Kingston. We had a lovely time when we were there. God, what was it? Back in 2003 now, I think.
I was going to say, it'll be a long time, because England haven't come to Jamaica in a long time.
Yeah. So is that a goer, do you think, Montego Bay, or is that they're not? I guess it's a chicken and egg thing, isn't it? If you're not playing cricket, do you put the venue in? Does that create the interest and therefore make it worthwhile, or do you have to have the interest to build the stadium so that it warrants the funding?
So I'll tell the cautionary tale of what happened after the World Cup. They built a stadium in a place in Jamaica called Trelawney. There's a multi-sports complex there, and they built a stadium there, and that has now fallen into disrepair. So I think there is a sense in Jamaica of, if we were to build another stadium, what's to say that they would even if Sabina Park is being used for parties and football, Trelawney, which was built after the World Cup, is not even being used at all and has fallen into disrepair. Yes, of course it makes 100% sense to put a cricket ground, a usable international cricket ground near Montego Bay, Negril, etc. And then if there was an international cricket ground in between Montego Bay and Negril, Jamaica would become somewhere England go all the time. So there clearly would be reason to do so, but would they have a plan of how to use it outside of an England tour or an any tour? I'm not convinced.
Yeah, especially if you're, because presumably you'd be looking at government funding for things like that, and if you're looking at a stadium that's recently been built that has already bitten the dust effectively, then you'd be, well, as we all know regularly, tax dollars are very hard earned and easily spent. There'd be an awful lot of pressure, wouldn't there, from other parts of the community going, hang on, we need money for inserts, books, roads, schools, nurses, etc., another sports ground. Yeah, that might be a bit of a tough sell.
The only island in the region that can really claim to have Antigua's obviously Antigua, you've got Sir Viv, you've got the Coolidge Cricket Ground, but Trinidad, that's why a lot of the domestic tournaments in the Caribbean are always held in Trinidad, because you can play multiple games across Trinidad. You've got Brian Lara, of course you've got Queen's Park Oval, but then they're what we call here the outgrounds that Trinidad have are good enough to host first-class matches on. So Trinidad's actually the country which, Trinidad and Tobago I should say, is actually the country which is most equipped for hosting multiple cricket matches, but it's not a... Please forgive me, anybody who's a simple Trinidad, but it's not a tourist destination yet. It's not seen as the go-to tourist destination in the Caribbean.
Don't worry, because I think I upset the Trinidad Tourist Board on that tour in 2003 as I described Port of Spain as being like Middlesbrough with sunshine.
Now you're out of order for that.
Well, on the grounds that because there's that huge chemical works near the docks, and it just smelled like Teesside. If you've ever been to the ICI works up in the north of Teesside, you'll know exactly what I mean. It was basically Middlesbrough with sunshine. But yeah, I kind of see that. Where does Guyana fit into all of this? Because for those who aren't aware, they've recently discovered oil and I think gas as well in Guyana. And in the last few years, Guyana is rivaling Abu Dhabi and Dubai with all this money all of a sudden. And he's piling it in.
So President Irfan Ali in Guyana, to show you how much of an economic boom is going on in Guyana right now, he just announced that anybody who is of Guyanese citizenship is allowed to claim $10,000 from the government. Everyone's just been given getting $10,000 Guyanese dollars for free. If that equates to, in British pounds, that equates to something like £450. Now, some will say, what, only that? But I'd take £450 if the government was handing it out for free. So that shows you how much of an economic boom is currently going on in Guyana, that everyone's allowed to now pick up some free money from the government. Now, in terms of a cricket sense, I think what really shows what's going on for Guyana is the Global Super League starts... Is it next week? It starts on the 26th, I think, which is next weekend, possibly. So the Global Super League starts in Guyana next week. For listeners who don't know that, the 5 international T20 sides are all going to be playing in Guyana. So Guyana Amazon Warriors, Hampshire Hawks. Is that what it is? Hampshire Hawks?
Yep.
Rangpur Riders, Lahore Qilandars, and Victoria, who aren't actually a T20 side but an Australian state side, but they're going out there. So they're having this Global Super League, attracting lots of attention. There's a $1 million prize cash fund for the winning team. And here's the catch. Gudakesh Moti, who, of course, was over here for the West Indies tour of England and was the incumbent spinner, will not be playing for West Indies in the upcoming Test series against Bangladesh, because he's going to be playing in the Global Super League in Guyana instead. And right now there's question marks in the region as to why is the Test incumbent, because the West Indies Test Series is going alongside this Super League. So why is the Test incumbent playing in, admittedly in his home nation, but why is he playing in a T20 tournament at the same time as the West Indies Test team is playing? He has a contract. West Indies have given him permission to go and play in it. So, yes.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, our very own Darren Goff is going to be coaching the Lahore Qalandars in that. And when Goffey was in here, a couple of weeks back, Goffey, if you are listening, apologies if I'm not meant to say this, but he basically had a list of players that he was working his way through as to who he could potentially get to play for the Qalandars in this series. And he said there were all sorts of problems because there is cricket going on in the Caribbean at that point, so they can't get any of the West Indian players. You've then got various other competitions going on as well, and Guyana are basically going to be absolutely stocked and loaded, so everyone else is turning up basically knowing that they're playing for second place.
That's what it looks like on paper. I think Guyana have got, and actually I should have brought this up when you asked me earlier on, Shea Hope is playing for Guyana Amazon Warriors, so Shea Hope has a 2-year central contract, but playing for Guyana Amazon Warriors in the Global Super League. So Roston Chase is playing for them. As I said, Gudakesh Multi is playing for Romario Shepherd's playing for. They've got a very good team.
Yes. It was quite interesting actually talking to Goffey about that, about trying to get players and who actually is available, who can do a job, who will be suited to those conditions. It's a fascinating world at the moment. It is coming up 9:30 this Sunday evening. I'm trying to remember what time it was we went off. We managed 5 overs, and it was about 23 minutes past 8. So we've been off for just over an hour now. What I can tell you is it is still raining. Covers are in place still, although they are trying to remove some of the water. But the latest, I'll be honest with you, the latest is it is probably a little bit heavier than what it was earlier. Now, Cameron Ponsonby, our man on the ground, has actually just sent me a message and said he's just been out there and said the outfield is actually okay. It's not squelchy, because that would be one of the concerns. He said it's just wet. And that is the problem at the moment. There's an awful lot of water. It is still grey in the direction where the weather is coming from. So it seems that it is pretty well set for the time being. So it really doesn't look like we're going to get a resumption anytime soon. I mean, if it stopped now, what do we have? About 8 covers out there, as I mentioned earlier, covering the playing square and the bowlers' run-ups. And there are also tarpaulings covering the problem areas from Thursday, because bearing in mind how much drying agent they had to put down there, it told us that it was very soft and squidgy the other day. So they'd be very nervous about that. So those areas are covered as well. To clear that amount of sheeting and get the water off, you would have thought we'd be looking, got to be an hour, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Got to be an hour from the time it stops.
It's not looking optimistic is my diplomatic way of putting this right now. But like I say, well, yes, I was about to say you never know, but I'll let you get the latest.
Yeah, but Cameron's just pinged me through a message. It's just got very heavy, and now this is the telling bit, because the ground staff have been walking around with their yellow sou'westers on. He said they're no longer manning the covers, and they've actually made their way inside. So, having praised them for being out there earlier and trying to be proactive, it does feel a little bit like common sense and inevitability has crept in. But it is down to the umpires. Mm-hmm. They are the ones in charge of this. There is no international umpires. All 4 members of the officiating crew and the match referees are all from the West Indies. So they will have a modicum of local knowledge on this one. They will go out and speak to the ground staff and ask the ground staff, how long do you think it will take to clear this lot up? And the answer to that question will determine what happens. Now, of course, the question is, when are they going to go and ask that question Do they wait for it to get a little bit lighter? Do they wait for it to have a sign that it might stop? Or do they give it a certain amount of time and say, right, well, it's still lashing down. What do you think? Because, yeah, it doesn't look great, this, does it, Mash?
My prediction is that they're giving this at least another hour before they make any clear decision one way or the other. So I think, in spite of how heavy it might be,
because it is, as was just said, it's just gone 9:30 UK time. We finished Thursday's game at around about midnight. So that gives you an idea that there is still about a 3-hour window for cricket here. So it could get reduced down. We've had 5 overs already. So if it were to stop in, I don't know, an hour's time, an hour's clean-up, you could potentially get England a couple more overs and get the West Indies 7 in replies, something of that ilk. But it all depends as to how fit for play it is.
I mean, this is the advantage, if you want to call it an advantage, of starting the game at 4 o'clock in the Caribbean. You do have plenty of time to play with still. So I don't think they'll be hasty in making the decision.
Actually, you've referred to it there, and in the pre-game interview with Shafane Rutherford, Cameron touched on him with that. So, for anyone who isn't aware, generally speaking, T20 games in the Caribbean start at 8 o'clock in the evening. For UK TV purposes, these games are starting at 4 o'clock to make it more appealing, because otherwise if we were starting at midnight UK time, it would be less appealing for TV companies to pay thousands of pounds for the rights. I know it makes economic sense. Does it make cricketing sense? Because what we've seen in these T20 games, I was making a note the other night that we start in daylight, and it's about 17 overs of that first innings when you can then see the players 4 cross shadows from the floodlights. So we're getting effectively a day game in the first half and a floodlit game in the second half. Are we putting the finances before the cricket? And do we have to put the finances before the cricket?
Cricket West Indies would like the finances to come before the cricket for sure. It's an England tour, the most lucrative tour that the Cricket West Indies can have from a visiting fan perspective for sure, as well as the TV rights. But then I think the thing that you should draw the parallel with is CPL. CPL games, as I know to my chagrin every year, start at around midnight in the UK. So whether 7 o'clock in the evening or 8 o'clock in the evening in the Caribbean, and that takes out that kind of that factor, that potential due factor, that potential two sides of the game factor that you're talking about there. And more importantly, for a Caribbean audience, they are used to matches starting much later in the evening and people piling in to, as they say in the Caribbean, lime and have fun. It's much harder at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to not enjoy, but to get yourself up for that. And that's why you'd see again, generally in the Caribbean, for the home crowd, they will turn up later on in a match in numbers. So it's very much been done with TV audience in mind. But then, does it not have to be? Because this wouldn't be an attractive game to watch on TV if it starts at midnight. Even if you're an huge England cricket fan, you're asking a lot for people to stay up till midnight, game after game after game.
Well, and also starting at midnight, and we're talking even this, the shortest form, still basically takes 4 hours.
Yeah.
So midnight to 4 o'clock in the morning, I would suggest you've got to have a fairly understanding family and a fairly understanding boss if you're going to see the whole thing through.
Yeah, it's just not practical. The wider question is whether the game should have started earlier rather than 4 o'clock. And again, that would possibly take away from the party atmosphere and what T20 cricket's supposed to be about. But if they had started these games at, let's say, the problem is then it's a heat factor, which is the other issue.
So, because they had some really early games in the World Cup, weren't they?
Yeah.
What time did they start?
They were starting. I want to say they were starting 10 in the morning.
Yeah,
10,
that feels about
10
right.
in the morning in the Caribbean, and I don't know if listeners will remember that when we had pandemic cricket, there was a CPL season where games were starting at 10 in the morning. I think they were having like triple headers, and there was like games starting at 10 in the morning, then 2 in the afternoon, and then the late evening game. So it's not like it's not been done before. And more importantly, the 10 in the morning would take away as well the two-sided nature of the games.
Yeah. 10 o'clock's ridiculous.
It is, yeah, they are.
I mean, you should never be starting sport when you can still taste toothpaste.
But then when I was in Antigua for the ODIs, those games were starting at 9:30 in the morning, and I'll tell you, like, I was getting up, not realising for think it was the first or the second one, both of them probably. It's like, oh no, I've got to be at the ground, and I've like literally just brushed my teeth. so it's not ideal starting a game at 9:30 in the morning.
You know, I was just thinking, you know, could you start around midday? But then if you're doing it for English TV, I wonder if starting a game at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the weekend, when you've got football, when you've got rugby, when you've got everything else, in a weird way, that probably works less well for UK TV. So like you say, you almost have to go crazy early or go for this option, which is the one they've gone for. It is TalkSport 2. We are still chatting away while we wait for official information on this game. What I can tell you in terms of unofficial information is the latest we've got from Cameron Ponsonby, our man on the ground, is that now puddles are properly forming on what is the outfield. So I have no official indication on this, but I get the impression we're not a million miles away from the umpires having a conversation. But we have to officially wait and find out on this one. I'm going to come back to that in a second. It is officially off. Hey. They have called it off. The match is abandoned. So we are now just awaiting for the presentation ceremonies that follow.